How much cash do you have in your pocket? If you're like most people these days, not much. Instead, you have a magic little card that you can swipe or even just wave around a terminal, and instantly you can convince someone to give you groceries, a cup of coffee, a fancy car, or maybe even something less tangible, like an education. Tens of thousands of years ago, you wouldn't have been able to convince anyone to give you anything just for waving around a plastic card. Handing them a wad of paper with a portrait of your favorite old man wouldn't have impressed them much either. Even still, centuries ago, when we were trading in feathers, shells, or bags of wheat instead of cash, the basic principle of how money works remained the same. Money, at its core, is a technology that allows strangers to instantly cooperate. It transcends language, culture, and upbringing. It communicates both our needs as individuals and signals to society what we collectively want most. It helps us tally up who has contributed value to the system and who has the right to take some out. It allows us to stand on equal footing. No one cares who you are when you have money to spend. As we've transitioned into a global society, our money has undergone a huge transformation as well. Strong currencies backed by governments have become the de facto medium of trade, and electronic systems have revolutionized how we do business. If you live in Canada and you need to buy labor or products from someone in China, you can offer them payment in seconds. Modern payment systems help to break down the barriers of distance and culture. Borders become non-existent. Not every part of this story is happy, though. You're probably well aware that there are gaping flaws in our system. You could call them growing pains, evidence of a currency and payment system that has yet to adapt to the real needs of modern, interconnected human beings. Even today, payment systems can be expensive and mired in bureaucracy. Worse still, the currencies that we trade in are subject to government policies that are often beyond our control. You may rely on the US dollar, for instance, but have no say in the money supply. Is there any better alternative, though? Governments and central banks play an important role in stabilizing currency. They serve as a conscious voice within the unconscious processes of a market. They help soften the blow of bank runs and other irrational human behaviors. They help smooth out the peaks and valleys of the business cycle. Could you imagine a currency that was, for better or worse, free from this influence? Well, we don't have to imagine this. Right now, at this very moment, we are in the midst of one of the most important economic experiments of all time. We are testing the very notion of money with no government interference, of payments without centralized verification. It is the free market gone wild. Cryptocurrencies are on the brink of changing everything. When Bitcoin first rose to prominence, users were hopeful that they would finally be free of central banks. This idea resonated with so many people that its price has shot up to levels previously unimaginable. And yet, there's a sinister side to its popularity. Bitcoin has been an amazing experiment in irrational human behavior, in greed, in what happens when a market is allowed to run as it pleases, without direction, without the light of consciousness. The result so far has been an extremely unstable currency that few people want to use as actual currency. Why would you buy that pair of shoes with Bitcoin if you suspect that next week the price relative to the US dollar will double? Those would be an expensive pair of shoes. What makes Bitcoin so valuable, though? Inherently,
Nothing, as with most currencies. Just the notion that you will be able to pass the currency on for something of value makes it valuable. You're relying on the fact that the circle of strangers, the ecosystem, that is using the currency will continue to value it. What keeps that ecosystem cohesive, though? In a game where people increasingly speculate, where they have no intention to actually use the currency, and are merely planning to hold it and then dump it, what keeps the price from shooting up to unsustainable levels and then tumbling down? The answer is nothing. A free market is nothing more than a mirror that shows the heart of an ecosystem. A currency, likewise, is only as useful as its culture of users, and at the heart of Bitcoin's culture is greed. So far, this has been the face of decentralized currency. It's a wild west of sorts, a ticking time bomb, a bubble poised to burst at any moment. It serves as a startling reminder of why government fiat currencies have been so stable and successful. Yet, is this an inherent flaw in cryptocurrencies in general? The ultimate problem with most cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, is that you have little control over who enters the system. It could easily be overrun by actors who work against the interests of the entire community of users. Cryptocurrencies are unlike any kind of money or payment system that has existed before. The ecosystem of a cryptocurrency functions more like a company. The users are both like shareholders and employees, except you can never fire them. Essentially, each member is like a CEO, and thus the other members of the system can do little to discourage criminals or selfish actors. This is the downside to anarchy, but is there such a thing as organized anarchy? The problem with Bitcoin is that it was built to showcase a specific kind of technology first, without any consideration given towards the quality of its ecosystem of users. If the quality of a decentralized currency depends so heavily on the people who use it every day, then it makes sense to lay down the right foundation. How would you build a currency that was stable, discouraged speculation, and rewarded cooperation? Let's face it, the culture of an ecosystem matters. You would have to build it from the ground up with the right culture in mind. From the very beginning, you would have to attract users who agreed with the core mission and valued that over their own short-term greed. You would have to incentivize long-term thinking and absorb users into a hive mind of sorts. When most users are collectively working towards a common goal, this paints a very different picture from the Wild West of Bitcoin, where most people are competing and many are directly working to undermine each other. Don't get me wrong, the problem isn't that this type of competition is ethically questionable or that it violates some abstract moral principle. It simply has negative, real-world consequences. It is inefficient. The complex hashing algorithm that works to make Bitcoin harder to mine and more competitive is a waste of energy and money. The instability of the currency's price makes transaction costs expensive, ironically causing a problem that Bitcoin had attempted itself to solve. More importantly, the rush of speculators discourages legitimate businesses and users who wish to simply transact and in doing so end up collectively building towards the greater good of the system. What would Bitcoin be like if instead of all this effort that was spent on greed was spent on doing actual work that brought value to others? Can a decentralized currency transcend all of these issues without the watchful eye of a government? As of yet, this is a mystery. But the key, I think, is that we need that watchful eye and that this I can be the collective human intelligence among the users themselves, instead of a centralized government. We need a culture that buys into the idea of working together in a cooperative environment. We need enlightened users to lay down the groundwork. Currently, such systems are in the works. Bitcoin may have been a proof of concept, but as many of the various alternative currencies show, it's not the only way of doing things. While Bitcoin provided a good demonstration of the technology and what it could do, it's up to a new generation of cryptocurrencies to figure out how to create the stability that governments once did, without a government. The currency needs to grow with the people slowly and steadily as the ecosystem learns to adjust with new actors entering it. This means the currency needs to spread organically, giving the ecosystem enough time to find its balance in this world in order to grow harmoniously. Hyping an asset up leads to increased levels of speculation, which in turn leads to volatility due to the rise in uncertainty of demand. So out of the tens of thousands of cryptocurrencies, how does one determine the winner? Is it the fastest to market? What are the parameters and conditions of winning this race? For that matter, where exactly is this metaphorical finish line? Without understanding the goal, is it really all that efficient to run as fast as possible, hoping you're on the right path? I mean, one could end up running in the wrong direction for a long time. The currency's ecosystem could end up in a distraught state where it is unable to recover from. By proceeding with caution and trying to understand the metagame better, we may find that it isn't necessarily important to win this race as it is for us as human beings to figure out the correct solution cooperatively and cross that finish line together. Thank you.